I'm Matt McClure, and this is Currents. It's brand new music for the upcoming new Mass, and the Diocese of Brooklyn gets a preview of The Sound of My People.
It's very beautiful. It incorporates all the gospel music, all the classical music, and all the contemporary Christian music that I grew up with.
Plus, disaster relief after Hurricane Irene becomes a point of contention in Washington. But could it lead to a government shutdown?
Can we once again inflict on the country and the American people the spectacle of a near government shutdown? I sure as heck hope not.
And Brooklyn honors one of the great saints of the 20th century, Padre Pio.
He was renowned for his holiness, and people associate a lot of miracles with him through his intercession. Because of those things, I think his popularity really grew and continues to grow.
Good evening. Thanks so much for joining us tonight. It is coming soon to a church near you. It's been talked about, it's been debated, and it's been developed for years. But starting this Advent season, Catholic parishes across the U.S. will begin using a new English translation of the Mass. It'll take a lot of getting used to. You know, the current version has been in use since the 1970s. So yeah, there'll be a bit of an adjustment period there. And with the new Mass comes some new melodies as well. This past Saturday, the Vicariate for Black Catholic Concerns took the opportunity to gather in downtown Brooklyn and learn the music that will no doubt be a regular part of their weekly celebrations.
Way back on Calvary. Listen again.
What happened here today is we had two events in one day. We had a workshop where M. Roger Holland, who is a Black Catholic musician and liturgist, shared his new Mass setting for the newly revised sacramentary and the newly revised Mass. The other part of the day was a celebration of the liturgy with that new music so that we can get used to hearing it and using it in public worship together. What Roger did that was very powerful was he actually just started playing his own music and showing people how easy it was to pick up and how much fun it was to sing the music. The other thing that makes this easy is these are choirs and choir directors from around the diocese. They're used to having to learn and read music on the spot and begin to pick it up very quickly and to begin to rehearse it.
It's very beautiful. It incorporates all the gospel music, all the classical music, and all the contemporary Christian music that I grew up with. It's going to be great.
The music must really follow the rhythm of the text, and I was just so bothered by how incongruent the old setting was with the new text that I felt it was better to compose just a fresh setting that was really more organically wed to the text.
This music is going to be used in churches all over the country in the Universal Church. This is a monumental and historic moment for us that someone from Brooklyn and Queens, his contribution and how he's been enriched by the local church here growing up and as a musician is now being brought out to the Universal Church through this composition and the church's acceptance and approval of his particular Mass settings.
I felt that there was a great need for music that reflected the aesthetic and the traditions of African Americans, of the people of the African diasporic community. So I wanted to have something that reflected who we are as a people, and that's where the title of the Mass actually came from, The Sound of My People.
The beauty of African American music is that it's easily picked up by others, whether you're African American or a person of color or not, doesn't matter, because the rhythm has a soul, it has a texture, it has, we would call it in French, an élan vital that's just alive and dynamic and pulls you right in. It's amazing because a lot of people thought when the Vatican was asking for music to be revised to fit the new translations and to fit the new norms, many people thought it would meant a compromise of the vibrancy and the effervescence of our Catholic worship as it has evolved since Vatican II. But M. Roger Holland in his Sound of My People composition has proven that the Universal Church and its leadership, they're not looking to take away anything from the vibrancy and the vitality of the liturgy. They're looking for us to bring that vitality with more precise and well-rooted interpretations and translations in the liturgy. It is a big honor for us as Black Catholics, and not just Black Catholics, but all Catholics of Brooklyn and Queens. We all share in the glory of that moment, that the sound of our people here in Brooklyn and Queens is being respected at the national and international level in the church.
All right, stay with us. There is more currents ahead. The UN Security Council debates Palestine's bid for statehood. We'll have that story, plus the rest of the day's headlines, next. Welcome back to Currents. I'm Matt McClure. Coming up later, a celebration in Queens for a modern-day saint. First, though, let's have a look at the day's headlines. The UN Security Council began debate today on the Palestinian Authority's bid for statehood. It's largely considered symbolic because the U.S. has promised to exercise its veto power on the matter. The Catholic Latin Patriarchate of Jerusalem and Caritas Jerusalem have both voiced support for Palestine's request. Meanwhile, though, President Obama and Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu say Palestine should work to achieve statehood at the negotiating table. In other news, a Vatican official has spoken out against last week's execution of Georgia inmate Troy Davis. The president of the Vatican's Council for Justice and Peace says he wishes the execution had not happened. Cardinal Peter Turkson told the Catholic news agency that he had hoped Davis's situation would be one aimed at, quote, saving life and working on conversion, reintegration, and change. Davis was executed last week for the 1989 murder of a Georgia police officer. Advocates say he was convicted on shaky evidence, and even the Pope requested clemency. Meanwhile, Supreme Court Justice Antonin Scalia says he would resign if he thought the death penalty went against Catholic doctrine. Speaking Saturday at Duquesne University Law School, Scalia said he could not be a part of a system that imposes it if he thought the death penalty was immoral. Scalia told the audience that he did not see any contradiction between his religious views and the death penalty. Well, turning now to Cuba, where a group comprised of women opposed to the current government is blocked from protesting. CNN's Shasta Darlington is in Havana with that story.
Hundreds of government supporters crowd outside the home of Cuban dissidents to prevent them from staging a protest march. They shout political slogans and insults. Out with the worms is one refrain. Inside, a group of female dissidents known as the Ladies in White waits in silence, using their hands to form the letter L for liberty. Many of them wives and mothers of political prisoners, they use peaceful marches to press for the release of their relatives and other inmates. On Saturday, they had planned to march to the Mercedes Church to honor the patron saint of prisoners. We want freedom and democracy for our people, says founder Laura Poyan. But when the Ladies in White try to begin their march, they're forcibly pushed back by the crowds and a group of men who appear to be state security. After 10 minutes of pushing and shoving, the women are forced back inside and the door slammed shut. There has been a period of relative calm here in the capital between dissidents and the government. Saturday's events may be a sign that the uneasy peace could be coming to an end.
That is CNN's Shasta Darlington reporting. Well, Pope Benedict wrapped up his trip to his homeland of Germany yesterday. Benedict celebrated Mass for an estimated 100,000 people in Freiburg. He told them that words and opinions are not enough and that Catholics have to practice their faith.
Agnostiker, die von der Frage nach Gott umgetrieben werden. Menschen, die unter ihrer Sünde leiden und Sehnsucht nach dem reinen Herzen haben, sind näher am Reich Gottes als kirchliche Routiniers, die in ihr nur noch den Apparat sehen, ohne dass ihr Herz davon berührt wäre.
During his trip, Pope Benedict also met victims of clergy sex abuse. That's something he's done each time he's visited a country. The Vatican said the Pope was moved and deeply shaken by the victims' suffering. In less than 2 months, Benedict will be on the road again. Rome Reports has details on his next trip.
Even though the Pope just got back from his 4-day trip to Germany, his eyes are already set on his next international trip to Africa. From November 18th to the 20th, the Pope will visit the country of Benin to meet with African bishops. 2 years ago, their synod took place, so during his visit, the Pope plans to deliver the post-synodal exhortation to the group, which they'll use as a guide in the coming years. During his visit, the Pope will celebrate the 150th anniversary of Benin's evangelization. He'll also honor the life and work of local Cardinal Bernardin Gantin, who served as a dean of the College of Cardinals for much of John Paul II's pontificate.
Well, Nigeria's bishops are criticizing their country's government for not approving a new minimum wage. The bishops say Nigeria is blessed with enough resources to pay a fair wage to every citizen. The bishops called for fiscal responsibility and said both federal and state governments should make cuts where there is waste. Well, forget about the separation of church and state. The president of another African nation says his government will be guided by the 10 Commandments. Michael Sata is the first Catholic elected to Zambia's highest office. According to a French news agency, Sata told some parishioners that the government would support the church. And a Massachusetts church that burned down the night President Obama was elected opened its doors again this weekend. Anardis Rodriguez has more on the racially motivated attack that led to the burning and the spirit of the congregation that never lost hope.
A very long journey. It's been a challenging journey.
Rising from the ashes, that's what Bishop Bryant Robinson Sr. is doing to lead his congregation forward.
We were bolstered in our resolve as we had determined early on, following in the aftermath of the fire, that we may be delayed, but we're not denied.
And almost 3 years after the tragic event, a dedication was put together to celebrate the community's effort in rebuilding.
The symbol of an attack on a sanctuary is so profound to begin with, but that it would happen on a night as joyful as the election of the president. And then to have so many forces come together to try to rebuild.
Bishop Robinson says the fire did not mark their community. In fact, he says the aftermath is a testament of how they have re-energized their faith.
There's a new vigor in their commitment and in their determination.
Because of the burning of the church, people from all different denominations came together to help and rebuild this church. So even though it was devastating, there still was a union and a bond that happened because of it, and we're grateful.
And that bond is their inspiration, as it will carry their faith for years to come.
Stay with us, there's much more currents ahead. Coming up, a possible government shutdown looms in Washington again. We'll have the latest. Welcome back. Well, it is another possible government shutdown as Republicans and Democrats have so far not been able to agree on a federal spending plan. This is something that everyone appears to be weighing in on, including U.S. bishops who have repeatedly called on Congress to not disproportionately cut programs for the poor. And as we hear now from CNN's Candy Crowley, representatives in Washington have until Friday to work things out.
For the third time this year, a congressional stare-down threatens a government shutdown.
Let me start with you, Senator Warner, and ask you if there is a point at which you think this is embarrassing.
Yes, it is.
Are we there?
Can we once again inflict on the country and the American people the spectacle of a near government shutdown? I sure as heck hope not.
The U.S. government runs out of money at the end of this week unless a temporary spending bill is passed on Capitol Hill. Inside the House version is money to replenish the Federal Emergency Management Agency, FEMA, which assists disaster victims, tornadoes in Joplin, hurricanes in the Northeast. The remarkable thing is that basically Congress can't agree on something everyone is for, funding FEMA. The crux of the matter is how and when to decide how to pay for it.
The House version says that a disaster has to be dealt with. We're going to help people who've been affected by disasters, but we're going to start cutting the government in other places where the money is not so important.
Senate Democrats have rejected the House version, saying Republicans are proposing to pay for increased FEMA funds with cutbacks in programs that create jobs. Nobody's budging, ergo stalemate, a looming shutdown, and the politics that ensue.
I'll give the Senate Democratic leader most of the credit. He manufactured a crisis all week about disaster when there's no crisis. Everybody knows we're going to pay for every single penny of disaster aid that the president declares and that FEMA certifies.
One point about who to blame or not to blame on this current, hopefully non-shutdown, is that there is a group, and I do believe it is mostly centered in the House in terms of some of these Tea Party Republicans who say on every issue, we're going to make this a make or break.
Pointing fingers about an impending shutdown can be good politics, but an actual shutdown is likely to hurt any politician in a 50-mile radius of Washington. Odds are good they'll figure this out. They have till Friday.
Can't we all just get along? That was CNN's Candy Crowley there. Stay with us. There's more currents coming up. When we return, it's an annual tradition in Glendale, Queens, remembering Padre Pio in the church and in the streets.
He lived how Jesus lived, so like my mother has always taught me like to live as Jesus would too. So it's just, he's a great role model in my family.
All right, finally tonight, quiz time for you. I'm going to ask you a question here. Name an Italian celebration that happens in September in New York. All right, yeah, Okay, I hear all of your answers. Through the magic of TV, I can hear your answers right now, and I'm hearing a lot of people saying the San Gennaro Festival, you know, that happens in Little Italy, Feast of San Gennaro. But, you know, as a matter of fact, that celebration is not the one that I'm talking about. It actually wound down, the celebration for the patron saint of Naples. It wrapped up yesterday. But a second celebration for another Italian saint was taking place in Queens. It was the feast of Padre Pio, a modern-day saint who bore the stigmata, the wounds of the crucified Christ. And as always, this year's gathering spilled out onto the streets outside St. Pancras Parish in Glendale.
Today, I think we can think about imitating Padre Pio in a special way by looking at his devotion, most especially to the Eucharist. Padre Pio was kind of a modern saint. He was renowned for his holiness, and he was a mystic. He had stigmata. People associate a lot of miracles with him through his intercession, receiving a lot of miracles. So because of those things, I think his popularity really grew and continues to grow.
What we're doing here today is actually for Padre Pio. It's a cluster mass, which means that all the parishes of this part of Queens, basically Maspeth, Middle Village, Glendale.
His story is that he lived how Jesus lived, and it's a wonderful story. So like my mother has always taught me like to live as Jesus would too. So it's just, he's a great role model in my family.
When we do a procession, we do the rosary, we pray. Doing this, we feel that the people that we see on the street, we can bring it to our community, we can bring it to our prayer group, and we show the faith.
When I do this walk, it's very emotional, again, for my own reasons, but it's absolutely beautiful for anybody who comes and does it. It's a beautiful experience. I actually walk with just socks on. I don't even walk with my shoes because I feel Padre Pio suffered, so therefore I need to suffer this one day of the year.
A lot of his blessings have come true. One of them is that he kept me alive when I fell down the stairs from my house. So that's a blessing to me, and he has kept my family safe, and this is in honor of him. This is what we do every year, and may San Padre Pio bless my family and every family in the world.
As much as I love Padre Pio, I named my son Marco Pio. This is Marco Pio. Hi. And I always feel like Marco is being watched and blessed.
Padre Pio said, pray, hope, and don't worry. It's something that I do live by, but do I worry? Of course I worry. my children are out there. They're out there in this world today, and I do worry, but I also know that Padre Pio will be with them. I know that Jesus is walking with them, and I know that Mary is always at their back.
Obviously a very meaningful celebration there, as it is every year. Well, that is it for this edition of Currents. Now, coming up tomorrow, from one white collar to another, the story of a man who found his true vocation. Until then, though, be sure and visit us online over at currentsny.net. We're also on Facebook and on Twitter. For all of us here at Currents, I'm Matt McClure. Thanks for watching. Have a great night, and I bid you auf Wiedersehen as we leave you now with scenes from Pope Benedict's recent visit to his native Germany.